Hey, what's up, guys? Happy Wednesday. I hope you spent some time in prayer. I hope you spent some time with God. And you're on your way to the gym. Food's packed. Ready to go. Ready to get those first wins. Man. I was thinking about today when I was a little kid. I was born in Chicago. Then we moved to California chasing my dad. And then we moved to Mexico. Well, as a kid, it was like a big, I guess you could say, cultural shock for me because I was already American. Like, I was already born here. I spoke English. I didn't even speak Spanish. And when we got to Mexico, it was like I was way behind in school. I forgot they put me in third grade when should have been like in sixth grade or something like that, fifth grade. But we were so far behind, and then I had to learn Spanish. I had to learn how to speak. It wasn't my first language, even though it sounds like it now. It wasn't my first language. Like, I had to learn, and my mom had to hire a teacher to teach me like the vowels and ya, ye, yo, you, and like to sound everything out. Spanish is not that hard though. It's actually a lot easier than English because in English it sounds one way and you spell it another. In Spanish it sounds the same way, you spell it and say it. It's pretty black and white. So I get there to Mexico and now I have to learn to be Mexican. I was going to school there. My whole life changed. So when my mom sent me back to go live with my dad, it was tough, man. I got to 26th Street, and it's a very high popular area of immigrants, people that speak Spanish. It's Little Villita. It's 26th Street. It's like Little Mexico. There's a lot of Mexicans in Chicago, and for you guys that don't know, we have some of the biggest Mexican parades. El Día del Grito. We are very connected to our culture over there. Very, very connected. When I got to Chicago in '89, I didn't know how to speak English. So they had to put me in bilingual classes. I still remember Mrs. Corona to this day at McCormick Branch. It was cool because we would go to McCormick. McCormick was on Sawyer and 27th or 28th. And we would get on the buses and they would take us to McCormick Branch. McCormick Branch was a school that was, same school, just a little branch off. It was on 26, it's on California and like I want to say 24th Street, 22nd Street. But it's right in, it's in a different neighborhood. So where McCormick School is at on 26th and Sawyer, that's Lang King neighborhood. The McCormick Branch School is a little further down on California, and that was back in the day. It was Tutu Boyhood, 2-1s around that side too, and SDs. Some Ambros used to come around with the 2-1s. It was very different, and when I got here, man, I got picked on a lot, man, because I didn't speak English. I was very soft. After all that stuff happened with me, with my uncle, the molestation, the rape, all that stuff, like, he pretty much took every sense of confidence away from me. Like, I was a scared little kid. I was unsure. There was a lot of things that, I just was dealing with because so much had happened already. And, I get to the United States and I start seeing all these like gang members, and like, to me it was like, wow, like, they had gold shags, they had leather gloves, or hats were back, they were wearing black and gold with flags, and cocking their hats to the right, to the left, and it was just like a gangster lifestyle that, like, I fell in love with because I didn't have nothing else to look at. So that was my blueprint to, I guess, what I wanted to be. I didn't know better. It was tough, man. It was tough taking bilingual classes because a lot of the kids, would pick on you and call you, a wetbag and stuff like that. So it was tough, man. And like I tell people, that year, I got bullied that year really bad by this older kid. Remember, I was in 5th grade, and this kid that was bullying me was already a freshman going into sophomore year. So he was pretty big, and all his brothers were Latin Kings. He hung around with them. I was terrified of him. I was terrified. I'm not gonna lie. I was fresh from Mexico, didn't speak English. His girlfriend liked me, so that's why he wanted to kill me every time he seen me. And I mean, I'm talking about black eye after broken nose, like all the time, man. Would I fight back? Yeah, I would, but I really didn't even know what I was doing. I was just so scared. It wasn't until that day where we were walking to the store, and I was walking with Chino. Chino was a Latin King, and he punched me. Right as we were walking into the store, he came up, punched me, and I tried to play it out. So I told Chino, go in the store. It was Armando's store on Christiana, and he was like, nah. He's like, if you let him do that to you right now, he's gonna do it to you all year, in school. So like, you might as well take care of it now that it's summertime and don't have to deal with it. If he whoops your butt, he whoops your butt. He's like, and I was so scared, man. I remember Chino was older than me. He was an 8th grader, but he was he was into that world. And he told me, he's like, look, JC, I don't care what you do, whether you pull his hair, gouge his eyes out, spit in his face, like, I don't care. Just make sure you whoop his butt and show him that he can't be doing this to you. It wasn't until that day that I didn't know how much rage I had in me because of everything that had happened to me. Like, that day, it came out. That day, I found out that I could hurt people. And that was out of pure rage. It wasn't even... I didn't know how to fight. I didn't, I hadn't even gotten into a fight. I got beat up, but never gotten into a fight. And from that day on, my life really started to change. I mean, I started actually picking on him at school because now I knew I could, kick his butt. And so the whole year, like, I spent analyzing gang members. Like, I would ride my bike to K-Town, and that's where the 2-6 were at. And to me, it was just, I don't know how to explain it, man. To me, it just grabbed my attention, man. Like, you gotta understand, in Chicago, the gang culture is very different compared to other places. Like, it's very organized. They took on a lot of mafia trades from Chicago, from Cicero. And they're very well organized with mascots, symbols, prayers, laws, actions, guidelines. I mean, you name it. They were very, very organized and structured. It wasn't what it is today. Back then, it was very organized. You knew what neighborhood you were in by just what gang mascot was on the wall. But it was different times. People were more about helping the neighborhood. It was just different. Latin Kings got started as a Latino movement so we could protect our own people in Chicago, because that's how most of the gangs evolved in Chicago, was to protect the race. It's very segregated in Chicago. You have the Polish neighborhoods, you have the Greek neighborhoods, you have the Mexican neighborhoods, Puerto Rican neighborhoods, and the Latinos are mixed here and there, but they're very segregated. And the gangs are the same way. You have gangs that have been in the family for years, decades. So, my life really started changing after that. And I started becoming more and more violent just because, I was seeing it every day on the streets over there. The whole gang life, especially right there on 26th Street. There was always a shooting. Other gangs were always coming to fight. And once I moved away to 59th Street, 59th and Spalding, where my grandparents lived, it was a change too, because over there it was all folks. 2-6, Ambrose, there was MODs over there, party people, maniacs. It was all mostly all folks on 59th. There was Kings in Crown Town, but that was it. You know, and when I became an SD, a Saint Disciple for 59, I really wanted to pick my own nickname. And I had some cool nicknames, you know what I mean? I had Green Eyes, I had Magic. I had some cool names, but you never get to pick your nickname. You never get to pick it. Everybody gives it to you, and you're kind of like stuck with it, and that's it. And I hated my nickname. I'm not gonna lie, man. Not too many people know my nickname, but I hated my nickname because it was Brazier. It was Bracero. You know, there was a gang in Chicago called Brazers, but that's what they called me, Brazier, because my English was really bad. You know, I spoke Spanish mainly. I was always wearing cowboy boots and situpiteados, and I just, looking back, I am glad that I spent time in Mexico, because I got to see my culture, my people, my food, just everything, how we carry ourselves, how we talk, everything. I got the best of both worlds. Music, everything. So yeah, and my nickname was Brazier. I tried to change it like 100 times, and they wouldn't let me. Ernie from 59, I gave him his name. He might not say it, but I came up with Malo. I take full credit and responsibility for that message. If you're watching this, Ernie, you know it's true, dog. You know it's true. I said Malo. It's the only Spanish nickname on our block. So, give me the credit. I deserve it. But yeah, man, I try to change it so many times, and it stuck. Brazier. So when I got here to Arizona, you know, it was JC. It's very scary when someone knows my real name. It just scares the jibbities out of me. Jibbity. How do you say it? Because if someone is calling my name, that means that they know something of me. So, you know, it's scary. And I'll give you guys an example. Yeah, let's go to prison stories now. When I caught one of my cases, and I'll tell you the story. Years back in the 90s, I had beef with this guy that was a border brother, BB. It's a gang that's along the border. And I got into it with him pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Fast forward 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. I walk into a unit, and there's this gentleman standing on top with glasses. You know, the whole prison look, like the whole psychopath look. You look smart, but you'll kill people. So I look up, and he's looking at me, right? And I'm like, whatever. So I walk into my cell, and I sit down, and I start, you know, filling out my commissary, just getting everything situated, getting started. And this dude walks in, closes the door behind him, like locks the door. If anybody's been to prison, you know when they lock the door, it means business. So I got up really quick. Like, I panicked. I got up. I didn't have no knife on me, nothing. I just got there. And he's like, Julio, sit down. And when he said that, I'm not gonna lie, my whole stomach just turned. because he didn't say it nice. He didn't say it with love. Like, he said it with, yeah. He's like, sit down. And he straight up told me, he's like, I'm not gonna stab you. That whole unit was all his people. All his people were in that unit. There was 2 Chicanos. One, he was from Philly somewhere. The rest of them were all paisas. They're all border brothers. So in that moment, I knew it was gonna go down. So he's like, I need a couple of things that I need you to help me with. He wanted some money. And I was like, cool. I was like, no hard feelings to the side, man. I was young. I was trying to explain myself, but there's really no explanations when you have beef with somebody like that in prison, because it just, there's no explaining it. Especially when you beat somebody up bad. So he's like, I'm not gonna tell him that we had beef or that you had beef with the brothers. Like, he's like, but I want these items. So he was extorting me, and at first, just to buy myself some time, I made it seem like I was gonna get the stuff, and I was like, cool, I'll get the stuff, no worries, man. Like I said again, it's different times. I was young, blah blah blah, because I was in my 20s. Now I'm in my 40s, so it's, and I'm not saying it changed, I'm just saying it happened a long time ago. I don't even know why we got into it. It's probably drugs. But he's like, yeah, I need these things, and I was like, okay, I'll get them for you, and I was making phone calls, I was on the phone, but I was looking at the whole unit, and I knew they were getting ready to get me. And you remember, I've been through a lot of prisons. There's been times where I've almost lost my life, and I'll speak about that one tomorrow, where, I almost died and they had to fly me out. I knew they were gonna get me. I kept looking at the crowds, reading the just the unit, the energy. I would be on the phone with my baby's mom, and I was like, yeah, they're gonna get me. They're gonna get me. And I remember that night, man, because I was on transfer. I was being moved, but sometimes when they're in transfer, they let you sit in these units, in these holdovers for months sometimes. So I didn't know what to expect. So that night, I put in my commissary. I was going to get all his stuff. It was a Wednesday. Commissary came on Friday. And usually transfers happen every day. Like, there's always a transfer happening, but I really didn't think they were going to transfer me. They locked me in the cell. It was nighttime, and I'm not going to lie, I was stressing. It was 3 in the morning. I was sitting on my bunk, and I was like, man, as soon as these doors pop at 5, I better be ready. Like, I was trying to find how to make a knife. I was trying to break a piece off the bed. I was trying to find anything to be able to survive as soon as those doors open. Man, I'll never forget, man, for real. At like 2:25, the guard pops my door, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? Because, I've been up already, like, paranoia, schizophrenia. So, Almanza, they call me on the speaker, and I'm like, what? And they're like, come up to the bubble, bring your things. And I was like, what? I was like, man, these fools dropped a kite on me, and they got me out of the unit. Or someone did, something. Or they heard my conversation on the phone, blah, blah, blah. A lot of things were going through my mind. I go up to the bubble, the guard's like, grab your stuff, you're getting transferred. Man, bro. The relief that came right there in that moment, oh, man. I nearly cried when I walked out of there because, prior to that incident, I want to say 2 or 3, maybe even 4 years prior to that prison visit, they almost killed me. They almost killed me. The guards watching the cameras said that the hit was so loud through the cameras they thought I was dead. But I'll talk about that one tomorrow. Yeah. So I ended up getting transferred. You know, and I was so happy, but it ended up being like the worst transfer in the world. This is where I end up in Vegas in some new prison that they had just built out in the mountains. It was private, federal prison. And as soon as we got there, they locked us down. All the guys that had affiliation, that were gang members, got all put in segregation. Everybody. It was the biggest unit I had ever seen in segregation. You know, the feds are tricky and weird because you'll hit federal yards and you'll hit private yards, but they it's the same thing. It's the same concept, just sometimes it's better. There's a federal private prison here in Arizona, Eloy. That's another story. It's private. It houses Hawaiians and homies from California. That's the only prison I went to where I never had to order commissary because there was so much food. Man, you know, I spent 17 years, 3 months, 2 weeks in prison. 17 years of my life. I don't say taken. 17 years of my life, I had to sit and learn skills that, honestly, I should have learned it on the streets. My parents should have taught them to me. Today, you know, my son and my kids are back in my life, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful they're not me. I'm grateful. They're actually really good kids. My son Rudy. You know, I named my son after Cato, King Cato. His name was Rudy. My son is named after Rudy, and my daughter is named after Valerie. Yeah, that's how close we were. But I'm starting to realize now that I communicate more with my son and we talk, that how important a father role is in kids' life. Even just a male role model, how important it is to have one, especially in a boy's life, a little young man's life. Very, very important to have a positive role model, male role model in his life. And I'm noticing that with my son, you know, his mom spoiled him, loved him to death. She got pregnant right when I went into the Fed, so I really never met my son. Nothing. She went away, got away from me, and disappeared. Fast forward later, 15 years later, you know, I meet my son, and he's a copy of me. The way he speaks, everything. He's just not bad like me, or was like I was. But it's so important to be involved in your kid's life, man. Not just pay the bills, not just get there and sit down and watch TV and scream orders at everybody, but be involved. Like, talk to them. How did your day go? Are you experiencing any, bullying? Are you? You have to know what's going on in your your son's life. That's why God stresses so much that you raise them, in His Word. But I'm just getting started, man. I'm just getting started at this new life. I'm just getting started on this joy, this happiness, everything that's happening and what's about to happen, because this is a big year for Wrong Strong. Everything. Wrong Strong Fitness, Wrong Strong Ministries, Wrong Strong Lifestyle. Wrong Strong Lifestyle is a clothing brand. And I will launch a couple of my books this year. I'm working on 5 books. I've learned to actually take my time and enjoy the journey. And that's why I'm not in a hurry to do nothing. I'm slowly adjusting and learning and just getting good at my skills, at my new skills, because I didn't live a life like this. I'm sharpening up my skills so that way I could teach other men like myself the skills that I learned to be successful. Because successful is a very big, broad word. And to me, I feel like I'm successful. Why? I have a job that I love to do. I help people change. I work like half a day, and then I go home and I spend the most of my day with my wife or my family. It's beautiful to see what I have now, but I don't think I would be as grateful as I am if I didn't go through all the bad stuff that I went through. And I'm grateful, man. I wouldn't change nothing, to tell you the truth. Even me not going to school, everything, me not being educated, not knowing how to talk, not having proper grammar, all these things have taught me to survive. And I've evolved to who I am today. Honestly, my whole life I've hidden behind my shades, my sunglasses. This is to show you how healed I am, that I don't have to wear them no more. Are they part of my armor? They're still part of my armor. They're still part of my logo, my brand. It's me. Those sunglasses were my shield. They hid my tears, my insecurities, my trust issues, my anger. They hid a lot of things. I wore those glasses to hide from the world, a world that tried to destroy me. I don't have to wear them no more. I don't have to hide no more. I feel strong. I feel good. And that's what I can't stress enough, guys. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your addiction. Take care of your toxic relationships. Take care of everything, because life is too short. We're only here to get ready for eternity. And if you ask me, eternity sounds a lot longer than this life. We're here to sharpen up our skills so we can live a good life next to God in heaven. Hey, well, that's all I got for you today, guys. Tomorrow, yes, I will be talking about when I almost got killed in prison. The rock was like this big. I'm not gonna lie. So, yes, thank you, Father. Thank you for today. Thank you for whoever's watching this message. Thank you just for what you're doing in us and through us. In the name of Jesus, amen. Hey, guys, don't judge nobody. Stay in your lane. Live savage. And remember, uncut, raw, in my car before I go into work. This is it. No fancy stuff. I love you guys. God bless.